In this video, we're going to be discussing Rabbi Moshe Cordovero, also known as the Ramak. Rabbi Moshe ben Yaakov of Cordovero, his family came from Cordova, Spain, as the name implies. They were probably left during or around the expulsion of the Jewish people from Spain in 1492, spent some time in Portugal, where they probably got the name Cordovero, meaning of Cordoba, and eventually made their way to Israel. We don't know exactly where he was born. He was born in the 1522, approximately, which is 30 years post the expulsion. But we don't know if he was born in Israel or not, but definitely moved there at a young age and spent most of his life in Sfat. At a young age, he becomes a very accomplished student of the Talmud, of Halacha, and at the age of 20, he decides that he writes in his books that he had a voice from heaven told him to study Kabbalah. And he joins the group of Kabbalists in Sfat, led by Rabbi Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz, who we discussed in a previous video, and later becomes his brother-in-law, and he marries Rabbi Shlomo's sister. He studies Kabbalah, and he has shortly afterwards, he eventually surpasses him and becomes the leader of the group. And he leads the group until his passing in the year 1570 at the age of 48. Now, what is interesting about Rabbi Moshe of Cordovero did is that the Ramak is that he developed a system of how to understand Kabbalah. Until then, we discussed previously about 150 years earlier, we have the discovery of the Zohar. And the Zohar is a work that is not an encyclopedic work, as far as it doesn't say, okay, this is the chapter we're going to be discussing this topic. It's just a stream of thought, a stream of consciousness of the different things that are going on in Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's thought and experiences, etc. So therefore, to understand that, you need a system of how we're going to actually understand all the different things that are discussed there, an intellectual system. And this is what Rabbi Moshe Cordovero discusses and develops, and we have developing Cordoverian Kabbalah. At this point, he has many disciples. For example, the Maharam Mipano, later who becomes Rabbi Abraham Galanti. Later, we have, of course, we discussed Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz becomes his disciple. Rabbi Chaim Vital, who later becomes one of the great disciples of the Arizal. We'll discuss in future videos. And even later on, people who studied his work consider themselves his disciples, including Rabbi Yeshaya Halevi Horowitz, later known as the Shalah. And really, Cordoverian Kabbalah dominated the day until his passing, where you have the Arizal and Luriana Kabbalah takes center stage. We'll discuss in the next video, God willing. Now, the Luriana Kabbalah and the difference between Luriana Kabbalah and Cordoverian Kabbalah is beyond the scope of this video, but just so you understand that there is a difference, and you should. It's a good idea to delve into it. And what are the differences? Are there differences? We'll discuss perhaps in a future video. Now, let's talk about his writings. Some of his writings, his most famous writings, are the Pardes Rimonim, also known as the Pardes, which means the orchard of the pomegranates, or the pomegranate orchard. And he also wrote a book called Or Yakar. Also an ethical work called the Tomer Devora, which is kind of a Musar ethical work based on Kabbalah, but mostly about ethics, right? How to behave as a person. Later, you also have he writes a book called Sefer Gerushin, which is like his wanderings. He put himself into exile, and he said through his exile he was actually able to achieve revelation of Elijah, and so these are some of his books. There are others as well. The Rabbi Moshe Cordovero really is a very important Kabbalist, and really became one of the most important Kabbalists of that Safat circle. Again, part of that Safat circle, Rabbi Shlomo Alkabetz, later the Arizal, Rabbi Chaim Vital, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, and he is very, very important in the development of Kabbalah. and later setting the stage for the Arizal, which we'll talk in God willing in the next video. Like we said, he also was a very important part of a very accomplished Talmudist, and he was part of the group of people who got smicha from Rabbi Yaakov Beirav. Essentially, I think we discussed previously that Rabbi Yaakov Beirav, he wanted to reestablish smicha, which is not just which means ordination, not ordination like you get a piece like sitting behind me, or you just get a piece of paper that a rabbi signs and says this person is knowledgeable enough in Jewish law to be a rabbi. But it's that there's this unbroken chain going back from Moses. That chain was broken in the Second Temple period, post-Second Temple period. But the idea was that they could reestablish such a thing if there was people who were great enough, and that did happen. There were a few people who were ordained as part of that, and I believe the Ramak was one of them. So in closing, the legacy of the Ramak is that of being a really important Kabbalist, somebody who changed the face of Kabbalah and really developing Kabbalah into a system. That system was really lays the foundation for Luriana Kabbalah and the Arizal as well. And even though he lived a short life, only 48 years, he accomplishes a tremendous amount, and his works are studied until this day. Okay, thank you very much for joining. If you have any questions, comments, something I could have said, should have said, if I made a mistake, please put in the comments. We'd love to hear feedback.